This is The Daily Rule. I'm your host, Bryce Prescott, and welcome to your insider access to the mindset, skill sets, and habits of the truly successful. These rules of success are short 10 to 15 minute messages, making it easy to consume and share for maximum impact. Here's today's Daily Rule. Hey, what's going on, my friends? This is your host, Bryce Prescott of The Daily Rule. Thank you so much again for stopping by. If you're listening to this on the audio podcast, thank you so much for being one of the OGs, a longtime subscriber and listener, my hope anyway. I have a request that if you are enjoying this podcast, there's a couple of different ways that you can reach back out to me and show me. Leaving a 5-star rating and review on iTunes is one. Naturally, joining my Facebook group, the Daily Rule Facebook group on Facebook, obviously, is another one. The link to that is in the episode description. And sharing it with your friends, like allowing this message to be something that is a conversation starter for you and for the people that you associate with. The things that we discussed here are important. Excuse me. And I'm just thankful for this platform that obviously is a collaboration with you as a listener or viewer. If you're watching this on the Facebook live stream or on YouTube, it's not lost on me how this is a dynamic relationship, with guys like Gary Vee out there and other influencers saying, just keep producing content. I recognize that can only go so far until when nobody's watching your stuff, you're not going to keep continuing it because it's not resonating and making an impact. I fortunately have not had to deal with that. You guys are great. You support the show. You support the things about the show. You are actively engaged in your lives and trying to make them better, and it's not lost on me. Today's message and today's rule that I wanted to talk to you about, I was actually reminded of something in my journal. For those of you that have been past clients, and even just fans of my message and me as a person, as audacious as that might sound, that I've been very clear about how important it is that on a daily basis we take time to start our day with meditation, a meditative practice, and then immediately after meditating, going straightway into a journal writing exercise where you are in the peaceful mindfulness of meditation. As you exit that, you then are able to express thankfulness and gratitude. There's a very powerful connection and a powerful catalyst for creation and change that happens when you do those things in that order. So naturally, I've been doing that. I practice what I preach. I've been doing that for decades. And every now and then I'll go back and I'll reread some of the different things that come up. And I found this old journal entry that I had written that beautifully actually follows up yesterday's episode about what problem do you solve and who do you solve it for. There's these little things in life sometimes that come about that are just small little adjustments. And for whatever reason, they just clear the way for things to work on a deeper level and for us to experience success. About 4 years ago, as a podcaster, I had this thing that I was writing about in my journal. It was, as I read it back, I was laughing because I remember just how frustrated I was. Naturally, I have had the opportunity to learn all of the software associated with podcasting. Some of the things I outsource to other people. I have a very small group of virtual assistants that help me. But before I could have anybody else help me, I wanted to make sure that I had at least a cursory level understanding of the software and the things that I wanted other people to do for me, and at best, a master level understanding of that. And that's occurred. I consider myself a master and expert in audio engineering when it comes to manipulating sound. Podcasting is a part of that, obviously. I've just as a hobby, I've made beats, ironically, where I've taken sounds and created electronic beats. I really do understand this. And not too long ago, I dove into the same sort of deal with video production and using Final Cut Pro and figuring out how to take video and to make it compelling and dynamic. And I consider myself a perpetual student in all that. Now, because of that, 4 years ago, I was at a different level of understanding of this stuff. And I remember I was reading in my journal, I recorded this podcast episode and I went to upload it, to export it. There's a process where after you record the raw audio, there's a transition and an exporting that happens that turns it into an audio file, like a compressed, smaller audio file. And when I would get to this point of having the audio file being compressed so that it could be turned into an MP3, the program would crash. And it was incredibly frustrating because I didn't know what I didn't know. I had no idea why this was happening because it all of a sudden happened right after a software update. And so I, of course, was getting upset about, I shouldn't have updated my software. I was in victim land. I was in all these different places in my head, like, why isn't this working? Trying to figure it out. Every time it would crash, it would throw up a code. And it just was driving me bonkers. Like, it was really pissing me off. Well, I did some research on Google and, took the code and researched some Apple forums and was able to figure out that after the software update, there was one little tiny checkbox that you needed to check in the iTunes program that made it so that it would talk differently from the Logic Pro 10 program as it compressed and converted the file into an audio file that could be heard by iTunes. One box, one checkbox was all that needed to be checked for everything to go back to being smooth and normal and stress-free and compression happening without any issue. I learned this new bit of information. I felt as when I learned this new information that this was going to be the key. That I was reading accounts of it working for other people, and I was excited now to have this newfound knowledge and to be able to apply it. Similar sort of thing, if you think about it, when we are inspired by a book or we listen to a podcast or we hear a testimonial of something working for somebody, we get that feeling of excitement, of hope that it's going to work. Well, then I took this newfound knowledge and I went into the program with Logic and clicked on the checkbox, and then I tested it. I went to compress and to export the file, and it went off without a hitch. Super smooth. That same example happens in our lives when we apply that new information, those new techniques, the new strategies towards getting ourselves to that place we want to go, and it works smooth. Now, here's where I wanted to apply today's rule, and the focus I wanted to bring about wasn't that all of a sudden it was the right information, and it's not that, all of a sudden I applied it. Those two things we've talked about a ton on this podcast. You know my 3 deals: information, guidance, community. The way that you achieve at a high level in any aspect of your life is making sure you have the right information, the right guidance via mentorship or coaching, and the right community of people to support you. That's not what we're talking about today, though. I wanted to draw attention to how simple the fix was in the story that I had shared. All of that angst, all of that anger and frustration, victimhood, was because there was not one tiny box checked in a program. That's all I had to do. And everything changed and became easy again. Let me repeat that. That's all I had to do. I just had to know where to do it so that it would work. So as you look at your life, you very well may be living in your own proverbial crash, where the programming and conditioning of your life that used to work, or at least worked in a manner to which it didn't draw attention to it with you, now is crashing, is causing things to crash for you in your life. And it seems way bigger than it is. It seems like it's this massive ordeal and it's painful and hurtful and you're alone and feeling isolated and all those things that come when life just isn't working in the way that you want it to work. One of the beautiful things about self-development in concept and principle is that it's not complicated when it's done right. Every day I get on this podcast and talk about a daily rule, a different angle or aspect on how to improve your life, how to take things and make them easier for yourself. You'll notice a theme that every time I share a rule, it's a compression. It's taking a bigger, wider viewpoint and shrinking it down into 1 or 2 actionable steps. It's simple. As humans, though, we get in our way. Quite literally, to have the life that you want, it's very simple. It's the equivalent of the clicking on the button and it working. But you got to know what button to click, and you got to be disciplined about making sure that it sticks. I've talked ad nauseum about starting your day with a meditative practice, then transitioning immediately into journaling, then breaking a sweat. Those 3 things are so simple. They have a massive impact on your life when you do them religiously. When you don't do them religiously, when you just do them on a whim one day, it affects your day in a very amazing way. It gets even more impactful when you consistently compile day after day after day after day doing that stuff. And then all of a sudden you find clarity and you find peace and you find the right connections and you find that you're unwilling to put up with certain aspects of your life that you were before. And so you make deeper commitments and you have deeper discipline. Next thing you know, you're living the life that you actually wanted to because of very, very simple baby steps to start your day. There's so many other things that are those little clicks that we overlook, that we complicate. We like to think that we're more important than we actually are. And so we seem to think that if we're going to change our lives and transform it into something that's this grandiose, beautiful expression of divinity with the money and the fitness and the relationships and the purpose-driven activities, that all of a sudden it's going to be this incredibly detailed, specific map. And we're going to have to be up, up, down, down, left, right. It's some crazy code that we're going to have to figure out to make work. And I'm here to tell you it's none of those things. It's very, very simple. Now, sometimes executing on that simplicity is very challenging and painful. And we have to let go of things that we've fallen in love with, literally and metaphorically. But I'm here to tell you that changing your life is not this complicated, grandiose, algebraic algorithm. It's pretty simple. It's a beautiful thing. After every time that I walk a client through one of my 3-month program, my private coaching curriculum, naturally they've had incredible results and changes in their lives, and I ask them for a testimonial. And a common thread that I see with the people that give testimonials for the program that I have written is that I couldn't believe how simple it was, but how impactful that simplicity was as well. So today's rule is stop complicating things. Sometimes, most times, in order to stop the crash of our life, it's just one little box we got to click. My friends, I'm going to wrap up this episode. I already told you at the beginning of this episode the ways that you can reach back out to me. So I'm just going to leave it at that. You know the drill. Love your life. Live out loud. And like I always say, until next time, take it a day at a time. I'll see you. Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Daily Rule. If you'd like assistance applying today's rule to your life, I invite you to click the link in the show notes and download my free assessment tool, The 3 Methods, that helps you to know exactly where you should focus your attention for the quickest transformation. As you're aware, the opportunities to be coached directly by me are limited, but if you'd like to see if you're a fit for us to transform your performance and your mindset together, making your life exactly what you've always hoped it would be, reach out to me at bryce@rulesofsuccess.com. Also, if today's episode resonated with you, I ask that you please head to iTunes and leave me a 5-star rating and review. That link is also in the show notes. Thanks again for joining me for The Daily Rule.